Hi guys, I'm Sriya, and today I'll be talking about trigger-based prospecting, turning intent into action, and how to use that to drive revenue. A little bit about me. I'm the co-founder of Persona, ex-LinkedIn. Persona.ai is a YC-backed company. Thank you. Rush is my co-founder, and we save your sales team time and money by consolidating all the different data providers out there and help you scale your prospecting. So, as we all know and see on LinkedIn almost every day, generic prospecting does not convert anymore. And this is because of three main reasons. Most companies are subscribed to one single data provider. And one data provider means that you're not having access to high quality data across different data providers. But it costs so much for a Zoom info or like a built with or anything like that. Second, we all know writing personalized copy at scale is extremely time consuming. You can't do that for everyone, and generic copy is not converting. And if you guys have seen with the 10,000 reposts on LinkedIn, Gmail is adding more protections to its inbox. So if you are still employing a spray and pray mass emailing approach, it will most likely get marked as spam. So this is a huge concern, especially if you are using an outbound based approach. And that's why we believe that sales triggers are going to be the way everyone does prospecting, especially going into the new year. And basically a sales trigger is an event that indicates a prospect or a company is ready to buy. I'll be talking about two types of sales triggers, a company sales trigger and a prospect sales trigger. So different sorts of company sales triggers means one, they need to have some sort of need for your product or capital for them to actually buy your product or service. So a couple examples I've listed out here, but I also want this to be a discussion. So if you guys do use any sort of sales triggers or anything comes to your mind, would love for you to shout it out and we can discuss how you guys use that. So a couple examples is if a company is hiring, that means they specifically have a role and capital allocated that there's a person that they want to solve certain problems. So if you see a company hiring a security engineer, and you're selling a security tooling company, that is a great way to reach out to them, being hey, I saw you're hiring for a security engineer, thought I'd reach out because we offer XYZ services. Whenever there's a new compliance or legal needs, so if there's some new law that's come out and your product can help solve that, that is a great way to reach out. Say, hey, did you know by end of 2024, your company has to be compliant with XYZ? Are you reaching out? Are you solving this problem? Here's how my product can help. If a company has raised a round, obviously that means that company is looking to scale. So that is a great time to reach out because they're growing, they have more needs, and they have big aspirations. And another example is if they're opening a new office location. I know Dimitri here today is talking about international expansion, and expanding internationally has all its new legal needs, compliance needs, hiring needs. So those are some company sales triggers that even we at Persona look out for. Would be curious to know, feel free to shout it out. Does any other company sales trigger come to your mind? A company is ready to buy, or even if you guys are looking hey, this is a high intent company for us when you guys are targeting.
So does it need to be something like an event, or is it more also a nuance to look for in a company?
Yeah, it could be some sort of specific, if they use a tech stack, for example, if they're if you're selling to e-commerce companies that use a specific Shopify plugin, or if they're you're solving an issue with AWS and that's something you want to know. So it has to have some sort of personalization into what is their need for the product. And most of the time as a seller, you already know this, but really doing that research and mentioning that adds that level of one, it's a high intent buyer, and two, you will actually see them most likely converting if you can really pinpoint that need. So that's why company sales triggers are really important, because also considering the macro environment, I know it's not just always trending positive for companies, right? You don't want to be reaching out to a company if they just had a round of layoffs or cut out a product line. That's not the right, and that's honestly a waste of time for you guys to reach out then as well. So really staying up to date on what is the company doing. Another really popular intent signal, especially for public companies, is SEC filings. like reading through those, what is the company's top priorities, and really hitting the nail on the head on the nail with that. Especially if you're reaching out to execs, they have these huge priorities that they list out in public SEC filings. So that's another way you can also reach out.
What about, let's say a company is launching a new product?
Yeah. So that's another thing, right? Like if they, like NVIDIA is launching this new product where your service can be really helpful. That's one of like the main things, right? Like I think he was asking, what's your name, by the way? What's your name? Walter. Okay, so what's your name? Boris. So Walter was saying, like, is there some sort of event needed? I think as long as there's some sort of connection to what is the need for your product, and making that super clear. And if that's not clear to you itself, you probably should not be reaching out to like any random people, because you'll most likely get marked as spam, and that will also lower your own deliverability and like email reputation as well. So going into like people sales triggers, one of the biggest people sales triggers is always if they either get promoted or change the company. So if someone got promoted from like a manager to director, that means in the coming year that they have XYZ big priorities or changes that they want to do. Or if someone is hired into a new company, especially if they're an exec, they're most likely brought in to bring change, and bringing change means they probably have X amount of budget to buy your product, and especially are more open-minded to new toolings versus an exec that's been there for like 12 years and probably coasting very steadily. So keep an eye out for like job changes or promotions as well, because that means that person is looking out for change. Especially a really high intent obviously is if a prospect has looked at your website. There's tons of like website tracker software out there. Even if you can't find out like this exact person has viewed your website, because that might get a little creepy, you can also see like, someone from this company has looked at your website, and kind of depending on what services you're selling, say you're selling security software, you can maybe reach out to their head of security, being like, hey, are you in the market for this solution? And reach out using that, because that is one of the highest intent triggers we've seen. Another one is if a prospect has a new interview or social media post. We're truly also entering an era of social selling. So just as you guys are selling some product, your prospect also has an ICP that they're selling to, and they're probably posting their thought leadership, their products and like interviews, and they're highlighting their company priorities as well. Because as you might have seen, like in this era of social selling, it's not just like even execs of companies are starting to post a lot more, give interviews, because as an exec at a company, it's not just, you work for that company, you're also caring for that brand of that company. So they're kind of like always selling their product. So if if you have this target account that's perfect for you, tracking those interviews, seeing what is this person posting about, really forms and bridges that connection with them. And that is what makes that kind of like personalized messaging per se. So went through some like different sales triggers. Now that I explained it, any come to mind for your businesses? I know someone was mentioning like if you're like a PLG company, right? You want to know if they have a free trial on their website or have mentioned certain keywords so that your outreach is actually targeted to what they might need. So sales triggers and reaching out by looking into those is very important. But where do you find these different sales triggers? So these are different places that came to my mind while tracking sales triggers. So one, social media platforms, looking at either what the company or their execs are posting on LinkedIn. Twitter as well is really big for B2B. If you're more in the D2C or like creator space, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, that is a great place to track that as well. Google search, Google News alerts for those certain keywords for your company, like do they have a free trial, or what is the latest news of that company? Do they have a recent product launch? Where are they headquartered? Google search and news alerts, CRM and email activity, kind of connecting between the different systems of like, okay, this person has this much open rate, and this is the person that's been interacted most in our CRM. This is the last interacted with, even analyzing the data within your CRM, especially the email content. If you can kind of like summarize through that and use all of that information, you can see like, okay, if they have certain keywords like follow up next year, you can always highlight that and like set a reminder to actually follow up at that time. And mentioned as well, like your own website, along with your prospect's website as well. Every time your prospect has a change in a copy or messaging, that indicates the direction that they're going and like which ICPs that they're targeting. And the more knowledgeable you are about your prospect, the more invested it seems when you are selling your own product, because you're not coming in as just like, hey, I'm selling you my product, but like, hey, this is how I can help you make more revenue and reach your ICP at scale. So these are the different places to track all these intent signals. And going into why I find, all these large language models and generative AI exciting, we've seen this huge wave one of generative AI with the chat GPT. You put in a prompt and there's this like long blog post or SEO article that you're doing. But for enterprise companies, where I see the real value is from synth AI, which is taking vast volumes of information from different sources and synthesizing and unlocking new insights, which wasn't possible before, and especially at scale. Doing this for one company is doable, 100%. You can like find the execs, read through the whole website, you can see all their interviews, track all their activity in HubSpot. But imagine you had a list of like 100 prospects. That is a huge, huge time sink, and that's a reason why most people are not able to do this at scale. And that's really where the power of generative AI comes in, is you can actually do all of these, even summarizing these long SEC filings. You can put that into an LLM and say, extract me the key insights from here, and it's able to do that. So really, really, I think if there's one takeaway, not just look into like the generation aspect of LLMs, but explore the synthesis aspect of putting in data from different sources and unlocking the insights from there. And a lot of that comes from experimenting with prompting. And there's a lot of people posting about their like favorite AI workflows or favorite prompts as well. So for example, this is the CMO of Clary. And I think last week he posted this like AI workflow. And he said like, let me Google this like CEO interview and summarize the insights and generate a copy based on that. So this one is something that like was mentioning, right? Like taking all these different intent triggers and sources and making like a workflow from there. And what we're doing with Persona is helping you do this at scale. So basically the exact workflow that he shared, we were able to replicate in Persona as well. And there's other platforms that do it as well. But yeah, I just wanted to share that really when you are reaching out or going to market, look into the intent, look into the triggers, and look into why exactly would they respond to you, and find smart ways to do that at scale using AI, because that's where the power of like AI can really help you, instead of very generic messaging, and in a way that's actually adoptable in your workflow. So taking a list of contacts, using different data enrichments, you can actually do that. And I can share how I was able to do that in Persona. So had this list of companies. I did our like Google search enrichment about like what is the latest CEO's interview article, ran that at scale, found all the Google search results here, and then I took like the snippets, took the link from there, and then I scraped that whole website from there for me to get the whole content. So instead of going to ChatGPT, just do it straight from that link. Now it's getting all of that information, and then I write a prompt to say like summarize the key insights. This is the whole website that I was able to scrape. And then I put a prompt like summarize the 3 key insights for this. And right after this, it's very easy. If you have a prompt, and obviously you'll need to experiment with that a little bit, but you can see that it was able to summarize the article for me. And this was for, I think I did it for a list of about 15, but you can run this for like a list of like even thousands at once. So yeah, trigger-based prospecting is definitely the future, and you can use AI in smart ways to make that happen. So happy prospecting, and hope you guys have a great end of the year.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So how do you find the prospects? So you now
Yeah.
show how you, let's say, enrich and find
Yeah.
information.
So how did I get to that like initial list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one, you can like add in all the different companies from like Sales Navigator using different keywords, or you can also use like lookalike companies if there's certain keywords that you want to track, or technologies. Say you had a huge list of prospects and you want to filter out if they have a certain technology or not, or mention certain keywords, you can use the enrichments as I showed you as well to like filter down to a targeted list.
So you can import Sales Navigator searches.
Yeah, you can import SalesNet. If you even just have like a company domain and you want to find people in a certain role, you can do that as well.
And
So,
how does that work technically?
so
Like for you guys?
yeah, for us, that's what we do. So we have partnerships with different data providers and consolidate that. So that way you guys don't have to pay that much money to all these different subscription services and just like have one place to do all your work. Cool. Thanks, guys.